Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. Today we're tackling a question many of you are asking. Is BioXcel Therapeutics a good time to buy now? We've gathered some, fascinating insights from recent analyses and financial reports to help you navigate this complex biotech landscape. Our mission, as always, is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from the sources provided, making sure you walk away well-informed without feeling overwhelmed. And if you're enjoying what we do, please remember to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. It really helps us reach more curious minds like yours. You can also consider buying us a coffee to support our work. Plus, if there's a specific company you'd like us to look into, please leave a comment below after we wrap up today's discussion. So for BioXcel Therapeutics, we're going to really, dig into what the numbers, the product pipeline, and market sentiment are telling us.
That's right. Our focus today is to move beyond the headlines and explore what truly drives a company like BioXcel. We'll look at the current financial state, the unique challenges, often brutal challenges, of the biotech sector, and what upcoming events could mean for this stock. It's a classic example, really. A company with high potential, but also, significant risks.
Okay, let's unpack this with the basics then. What do the latest financials tell us about BioXcel Therapeutics? Because the numbers I've seen paint a pretty striking picture.
Yeah, what's truly compelling here, but maybe not in a good way, is the revenue for their lead product, IJLMI. In the first quarter of 2025, BioXcel reported net revenue of approximately $0.17 million.
$0.17 million.
And to put that in perspective, this is a sharp decline from $0.58 million in the first quarter of 2024. It really highlights, quite starkly, very limited commercial traction so far.
That's quite a significant drop year over year. Wow, especially for a flagship product. But I also saw that their net loss actually improved, right? Does that balance things out at all?
That's a good point, and it leads us to a crucial distinction. Yes, the company posted a net loss of $7.3 million in Q1 2025. And that is indeed an improvement compared to a $26.8 million loss in Q1 2024. However, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this improvement was primarily due to lower operating expenses, not revenue growth.
So it's less about making more money and more about spending less.
Exactly. Their EPS, the earnings per share, for May 12, 2025 was negative $1.50. Now, that technically beat a consensus estimate of negative $3.04.
Okay.
But again, this reflects those aggressive cost cuts rather than any increase in revenue or improvement in sales. Consensus still expects continued losses, actually. For Q2 2025, the EPS estimate is around negative $2.30. And that hasn't changed recently, which indicates, pretty tempered expectations for near-term profitability.
Okay, let's talk about their financial health then. Do they have enough cash to keep going, especially with those losses?
This brings us to an important question, a key point of concern, really. As of March 31st, 2025, BioXcel had $31 million in cash and cash equivalents.
31 mil.
Yep. And with continued losses, even with the cost cutting, this provides a limited runway for their R&D and commercialization needs. They'll likely need partners or have to raise more capital unless something changes dramatically.
That doesn't sound like a lot of breathing room.
It's not. Their operating discipline is clear, though. R&D expenses fell quite a bit to $4.6 million from $11.4 million year over year. And SG&A, selling, general, and admin expenses, fell to $5.7 million from $13.3 million.
So they did cut costs significantly.
They did. And while this reduced their cash burn, it also underscores, a constrained investment capacity. It limits what they can do going forward.
Okay, that paints a pretty clear and somewhat concerning picture financially. Let's shift gears then. Let's talk about their product. What exactly is IJLMI and how does BioXcel plan to differentiate it?
Right. So IJLMI, or dexmedetomidine sublingual film, targets acute agitation, specifically in patients with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. It's a competitive space. You need to understand that. You've got existing antipsychotics, newer agitation treatments.
So it's crowded.
It is. What's fascinating here, though, is their strategy. They plan to pursue an at-home use label expansion. That's really how they hope to differentiate themselves and potentially unlock a much bigger market.
At-home use. That sounds ambitious. What's the timeline for that? Is that soon?
Well, management plans include initiating the Tranquility in Care Phase 3 program and, crucially, a Serenity at-home data readout scheduled for the second half of 2025.
Second half of this year, okay.
Yes. And this data is absolutely critical. It's needed to support a supplemental new drug application, an SNDA, for that at-home label. If the outcomes are successful, it could significantly enhance their market positioning. But, execution risk and regulatory risk remain high.
It sounds like a lot is riding on that Serenity data.
Absolutely. It's a pivotal moment for them.
Okay, so when we talk about valuation, are traditional metrics like price to earnings ratios useful here at all?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Because they have negative earnings, PE is meaningless. And price to sales isn't very instructive either, given Agallamai's minimal and actually declining revenue base.
Right, that 0.17 million.
Exactly. So this implies that valuation for BioXcel is primarily event-driven right now, not based on traditional fundamentals. It's essentially a binary setup. The upside depends almost entirely on those regulatory and clinical outcomes we mentioned.
So it's a bet on the science and the FDA, basically.
Pretty much, yes.
And what about the stock's behavior itself? Is it stable? Or should listeners expect, well, a bumpy ride?
Oh, traders should definitely anticipate elevated volatility, no question. Near-term price behavior around earnings dates has historically been very volatile for BioXcel.
When are the next earnings?
They're scheduled around mid to late August 2025, so that could be a short-term trading catalyst window right there. Momentum indicators for this company, like, frankly, many small-cap biotechs, show sharp moves around updates in earnings, not steady uptrends.
So definitely not for the faint of heart.
Not at all.
So what are the big events on the horizon then, the things that could really move the stock?
Okay, for the short term, like I said, the Q2 2025 earnings report and any guidance commentary, that's coming up mid to late August. Expect volatility around that. Any incremental detail on the timing for the Serenity at Home readout or the Tranquility trial start could also move shares.
And for the longer-term investors, the ones willing to ride out some volatility, what's the crucial event for them?
Without a doubt, the Serenity at Home data in the second half of 2025.
Yeah.
That is the key potential value inflection point. If it's positive and supports that SNDA for at-home use,
Yeah.
that could be a game changer for Agilama.
And the Tranquility trial.
Right, the initiation and progression of Tranquility and Care Phase 3, that's for agitation associated with dementia. That could open an even larger population. But that introduces multi-year timelines, more regulatory hurdles. So it's a longer-term story with its own significant risks and capital needs.
Okay. With all this potential, you also mentioned significant risks earlier. What are the primary risks you see for BioXcel Therapeutics?
Yeah, this raises an important question. What are the risks you absolutely need to consider? First, commercial execution risk. That Q1 2025 IGLMI revenue decline really highlights the adoption challenges they're facing. Can they actually sell this thing effectively?
Even if they get the new label.
Even then, potentially. Second, there's huge clinical and regulatory risk. The company's value depends so heavily on positive readouts and that potential SNDA approval. Failure or even just a delay would likely pressure the stock significantly.
And you mentioned cash earlier.
Right. Third is financing risk. With only $31 million in cash as of the end of March and ongoing losses, they may well need capital raises. And those could dilute existing shares, meaning your piece of the pie gets smaller.
So commercial, clinical, financial, anything else?
Well, beyond those company-specific things, the biotech sector itself is just highly volatile. Shifts in broader market risk appetite can really impact microcap names like BioXcel, regardless of their own news.
Okay, that's a lot to weigh. Given everything we've discussed, the tough financials, the ambitious strategy, the make-or-break catalysts, the risks, what's the overall investment thesis here? How does the analysis you reviewed sum it all up?
The overall rating from the analysis we looked at is pretty cautious. It's a 3.5 out of 10.
3.5 out of 10, that's not high.
No, it's not. The rationale is basically that the minimal and declining revenue, the ongoing losses, the limited cash, it all creates a very high-risk profile. The company is primarily dependent on these upcoming catalysts, not strong fundamentals. Yes, the cost-cutting improved their EPS versus expectations, but there's no demonstrated commercial inflection point yet for IGL. Analysts are basically waiting for that second half 2025 data. It's a wait-and-see situation.
So how should a listener approach this then? Is it a long-term hold or something else entirely?
Based on this analysis, this stock looks better suited for short-term trading around those defined catalysts and earnings dates, rather than a long-term investment. For it to become a long-term play, you'd need much clearer evidence of commercial traction or, those positive label expansion outcomes actually happening.
And for those considering short-term trading, any suggestions there?
Well, the suggestion is to maybe scale entries on pullbacks before those catalyst windows. So don't chase it right into the news. And very carefully manage risk, especially going into Q2 earnings and ahead of that second half Serenity readout.
Manage risk. How?
Given the high volatility, you absolutely need to calibrate entry levels to your own risk budget. Watch the charts. And for trading, a tight stop loss, maybe 8–12% below your entry, is recommended. That's because of the binary news. Risk bad news could cause a big drop.
And on the upside.
For take-profit targets, maybe consider taking partial profits at plus 15–30% gains and then trailing a stop on the remainder. You have to recognize the potential for really outsized moves in either direction around these news events. Active management is key.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener? BioXcel Therapeutics is really a fascinating case study, isn't it? It's the high-stakes world of biotech, where a few key data readouts can make all the difference. It's a compelling reminder, I think, of the importance of understanding the specific drivers behind a company, especially when traditional metrics don't really apply.
Indeed. And this raises an important question for you to consider, thinking about your own investing style. In situations like this, where a company's future really hinges on a single binary event, like a clinical trial readout, how do you truly assess and manage that risk? It's not just about the data itself, is it? It's about understanding the market's likely reaction, the underlying commercial challenges, even if the data is good, and how all of that aligns with your own investment philosophy and your tolerance for potential big swings.
Absolutely. A lot to think about there. We hope this exploration into BioXcel Therapeutics has given you some valuable insights and a clearer picture of what to look for. Thank you for joining us today. We love helping you become more well-informed quickly and thoroughly. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a like, comment with your thoughts, or suggest another company for us to explore next time. And if you're feeling generous, consider buying us a coffee. The link is usually below. Until next time, keep learning and stay curious.